This is Cody's Bait and Tackle, Warsaw, Missouri. I haven't given fishing report for a little over a week. Fishing's been kind of funky here lately. Uh, the lake is mostly done turning over, I would say. There's still some areas that haven't turned all the way. I think the days are just getting up so warm, it's kind of slowing down the process. As far as crappie, I've heard Fairfield has turned back on pretty good. That would be where Little Palmy and Big Palmy come together there around Indian Island. Some of that area down in there has turned on. Osage is still really slow. I talked to several people. I catfished Osage part of this week. It was hit and miss. One day them fish would bite, next day they'd be gone, or the next day they just wouldn't bite in the same spot, and have to do a lot of looking and find a few fish that are active. I fished the Grand several days. I did see some guys catching crappie up there just below Bucksaw. I've seen some guys catching some white bass up around G10, G14. There were some white bass up in there. Seen some white bass coming off KK Island this last week. Looked like they was hanging probably 12 to 15 foot on the humps is kind of where I've seen them at. There was some white bass a few days on some of the windblown banks. So that fall bite is not far off on the white bass on Truman. I did hear say this goes for Lake of the Ozarks and Truman. The bottom end or midsection, the bottom end of Lake of the Ozarks, of an evening, they caught the white bass real good on the windblown points. They wasn't quite coming up in the pockets yet like they normally do. Of course, they're on Lake of the Ozarks. They're shooting docks down there right now for crappie too. On the bottom end, they're just murdering the crappie shooting docks. I've seen guys talking like anywhere from 25 to 50 foot of water. The docks that's got structure underneath them and stuff are just loaded with fish. One guy said, I think he shot one dock and shot 17 times and had 15 fish or something like that. It was really good this weekend down there. Truman's jigs and minnows on the crappie they're catching. That Bucksaw area and Fairfield areas is the main two areas I've heard of them catching. The bluffs across from Shawnee Bend, there's been some fish caught off them the last week, on and off, but not consistent. Said they come up and go down, and when they're down they don't do a whole lot, and when they start coming up they'll catch some. So they're kind of just moving around just like the catfish are. Water's still not real stable. Main lake was still bubbling pretty hard this week. As far as catfish, I fished the Grand and Osage pretty much all this week. I did fish Lake of the Ozarks one day. I took a couple guys way down towards quite a ways down. Not quite to the big end, but pretty close. And I don't know, we caught 40 fish in no time. That bite down there can't get any better. We drifted all the way down to 55 foot of water and was catching fish. Most of them, I tried to stay from like 28 to 35 foot down there, and it was a really good bite. I did drift that deep water just to see if them fish would bite that had just moved down that deep, and they did. I was running pretty well whole shad. Put 2 hooks in them, and that's all I ran down there trying to catch big fish. We caught a few slots, but nothing, no overs, nothing real big. We did catch 1 or 2 overs this week on Truman. A ton of slot fish up there every day. We had 2 or 3 or 4 slot fish. So they're definitely plentiful up there. As far as bass, I have heard anything and everything imaginable. I've heard of a few being caught off them points. Heard of a few coming out of the backs of pockets, but not very many. I had guys wanting jigs this week. They was jigging brush piles for bass. Nobody was catching consistent, but they sounded like they all caught a few decent fish. So I didn't hear how the Warriors tournament went on bass side. I did see there was some catfish caught in it, and There was some bass, but I didn't hear what won it. So, and then there was a youth bass fishing tournament Sunday that I didn't hear what won. I know several of them boys was in here when they was pre-fishing, and a lot of them was wanting buzz baits, top water, stuff like that you'd normally use during the fall bite. A few of them was wanting like Senkos and trailers for jigs and stuff like that. So I think they was fishing a little bit of everything. Didn't have anybody really talk about that jerk bait bite yet. I don't think it's started yet. Usually during the fall, when them fish come up in them shallow pockets and on them windblown points and stuff, you'll catch a white bass and largemouth on jerk baits and stuff like that. Haven't seen it yet. But we haven't had any wind really. We're getting some rain today and supposed to have some wind come in today. That'll push them fish up shallower. When that water's dead calm, they don't like being up there shallow. So it's kind of one of the bites you want to fish when it is a little bit choppy out. But that's about all I've got for today. I haven't heard much on the hybrid bite. I think Jim Cuda, I think he's still catching some hybrids. I haven't talked to him in a few days, but last time I talked to him, he said it was still a pretty good bite running live bait. So they're still biting some. I'd say on them, I've seen some over towards the state park, G4 area. I haven't seen too many up around the dam, but they haven't been running hardly anything for water either. I'd say KK Island's probably still holding a few. I do know a few have moved up in the creeks because I've seen them popping on shad when I was catching bait. But them look like smaller fish. They didn't look like the big hybrids yet. But it won't be after this rain today and tomorrow. It's supposed to get cold the end of the week, and then I think Sunday morning or Monday morning supposed to be below freezing. That lake will be done turning over. Everything will kind of pick up and get back on pace. Them fish will move around to the creeks and creek mouths, and it'll be getting good here in the next week and a half. Everything will be getting good, if not by the end of this week. So I appreciate it, y'all. Have a good one.